Thank you, Madam Secretary. Good morning. Today is December 6th, 2022, and we're going to start our open meeting. Commissioner Secretary, would you please call the roll? Present. Present.
Present.
Present.
Present.
Present.
Perfect. Welcome, everyone. We have a friendly reminder today for us present that we're continuing to provide for our live stream of our open meetings for the public to view from their office or home. If you're speaking, please make sure you speak into the microphone. That microphone's on so the viewers may hear what's being said. We're going to start our meeting this morning with a brief safety emphasis from Tyler Murray from the district who's going to share with us. Tyler?
Morning, Chairman, Commissioners, and Director McKenna. First, I want to thank you for providing the opportunity to me to give the safety briefing today. My name is Tyler Murray, and I'm an intermediate highway designer here in the Kansas City District. In January, I will come up on my 4-year work anniversary, and I just want to say how truly blessed I've been to work with great coworkers, supervisors, and mentors, not only in the Kansas City District, but throughout MoDOT as a whole. So with that, I will start the safety briefing. In the event of a fire, everyone will exit to the rear of the room, turn left, and exit outside. Once outside, we will turn right and reconvene near Ward Parkway. Though severe weather is not forecasted today, if there would be severe weather, this room right here would be the safest place for us to stay. If we must evacuate this room, please take one moment to make note of who you are sitting next to and make sure that upon your arrival to the designated safe location that your neighbor has arrived safely as well. A fire extinguisher is located behind the door behind the screen. I will retrieve that if necessary. If there is a medical emergency, Matt Killian will call 911 and direct the emergency responders to our location at 401 Ward Parkway. Becky Almaroth has volunteered to administer CPR, and Eric Schroeder will assist them if necessary. There is an AED under this podium, and Travis Kessner will retrieve it if needed. With that concludes the safety briefing.
Thank you, Tyler. Before we move on from our safety focus, I'd like to call upon Becky Almaroth, Chief Safety and Operations Officer, for a brief presentation. Becky.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me take a moment. I thought it was appropriate right after our safety briefing to give a couple of leadership coins from the Chief Safety and Operations Officer to two of our safety champions that are in the Kansas City District. I've literally held on to these coins for about 6 months until we came to Kansas City so I could recognize them in person. So if Chris Scholl and Travis Jones could please come up. And they do not know why they're here today. I think they were wondering why they got a personal invitation. But these leadership coins, the first one that's going to Chris Scholl. Chris Scholl, we had a little bit of tragedy in one of his buildings last year, and Lloyd Crawford, our building supervisor that was killed in the line of duty, was one of Chris's direct reports. Chris, in the eye of tragedy, could have tucked his head and really let that impact him, but what I saw out of that tragedy was a leader that really emerged. And Chris took it upon himself. He didn't want a tragedy to happen in any other buildings, and knowing that sometimes some of our unsafe acts and the things that we do on an everyday basis are because of complacency, and you just don't think every day. Nothing's happened to me in 25 years. You don't always think about your safety first. Chris wanted to make sure that all buildings were putting an emphasis on safety, and he created a safety audit. It's beautiful, couple pages of lists that you can go through with the building just to see, are they really the flow on the building? Are they backing and using spotters? Is the cleanliness of the building keeping everything safe? And he has actually taken action. He's gotten some of his best safety leaders and champions. And when you have a peer come to the building to really assess your building for safety, it's really, really well received as opposed to me coming into the building sometimes. So he has even this year taken the action to shut a building down and say, we're going to do a safety stand down because I've had too many concerns as I've walked in the door. So I want to present this leadership coin to Chris for his actions. And then the second one, Travis Jones. Anybody that has anything to do with safety knows that training is one of those cornerstones and pillars of your safety program. And a couple of years ago, Travis came up and he said, I have an idea I want to pitch to you. Can we go eat lunch and talk about it? And he had the idea of a training academy. And that training academy, I loved what I heard, that you get an employee into your building that's had the majority of their training in a kind of a closed atmosphere where it's safe, they can get the hands-on with the equipment and be almost fully trained whenever they come to your building because of the high turnover that they have in the Kansas City district. Travis has made that dream a reality within the Kansas City district. I would love to have that training academy replicated across the state. So we had our safety response team stood up a couple of months ago. We have a training section within that. And a couple of months ago, I tapped Travis on the shoulder. I said, I'd like you to be one of the co-leads of that training section, and he gladly obliged. So really excited what Travis is going to do with training across the entire state with the emphasis on safety. So Travis, thank you very much.
Okay, next I need to review a few procedural items. I want to remind everyone that we have a public comment period, and we're pleased to offer this to every Missourian who wants to come before the commission and address an issue of concern. If you would like to do that, please sign up before 9:30. You'll be given 5 minutes for public comment and 10 minutes per subject. Next, I'll review our abstention process. There are commissioners that, because of land ownership or business interests, or the lawyers may represent clients that may either have some relationship to a matter coming before the commission and may have a potential or actual conflict of interest to be considered or voted upon. The commission member will indicate if he or she chooses to abstain voting or to recuse himself from participating in discussion of an agenda item. If an agenda item is divisible by contract, call, project, or the like, a commissioner may specify that particular matter and then still vote on the remaining agenda. This information is provided to the commission secretary by letter in advance. The commission secretary will duly indicate the abstentions or recusals in the minutes. Madam Secretary, have the necessary letters been prepared? Thank you. The first item of business on the agenda today is consideration of minutes from our regular meeting of October 5th, 2022. Are there any additions or corrections?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes from October 5th, 2022.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries. The next item is consideration of items on the consent agenda. Does anyone need to remove any item from that?
Mr. Chairman, by written notice, I will abstain on this vote because it involves a matter involving the railroad industry.
Okay, we'll duly note that. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next order of business is to receive committee and board reports. The Commissioner Eckert and I serve on the Audit Committee. Commissioner Eckert has today's report.
Mr. Chairman, there is no report today. Our next audit committee meeting is scheduled for April.
Thank you. As co-chair of the Legislative Committee, Commissioner Smith will give today's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. December 1st marked the first day that members of the Missouri General Assembly could pre-file legislation for the 2022 legislative session. At present, we have not identified any specific transportation-related proposals negatively impacting transportation. Resulting from the November midterm elections, the Senate will return with 8 new members, while the House will see 49 newly elected members. The new term will begin on January 4th, the same day all newly elected officials will be sworn in. As for leadership, we know that Representative Dean Proctor from Town and Country will be the Speaker of the House, and Caleb Rodden from Columbia will be President Pro Tem of the Senate. Both the Commission and MoDOT staff want to congratulate these 2 leadership positions and look forward to working with both the newly elected and returning House and Senate members. For December, MoDOT staff will continue to educate elected officials on the Commission's 2023 legislative agenda and policy positions. Governmental Relations expects to see progress on the handheld electronic wireless communication devices while driving and on the creation of the Ports and Waterways Trust Fund during the next session. On behalf of the Commission, we look forward to meeting all the newly elected office holders and are excited on what the new year holds for advancing transportation throughout the state of Missouri. This ends my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. And you also serve as president of the MTFC. Commissioner Eckert is a board member. Commissioner Smith will give the report today.
Well, it's lengthy, no report. The next meeting will be in February.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith, Boatwright, and Eckert serve on the Empress Board. Today, Commissioner Boatwright will provide the report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last board meeting was held on November the 17th. The Audit Committee reported the 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report received a clean or unmodified opinion from external auditors. We have a Governance Committee meeting set next week for December the 14th. And the next board meeting is set for February 17th, 2023. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Boatwright. As chairman, I serve on the Missouri Coalition of Roadway Safety Executive Committee, and I'll provide a report today. We did not meet this month, but we're going to meet in January 5th of next year. As we near the end of 2022, Missouri sadly once again is on pace to approach 1,000 traffic deaths. Through November 28th, 926 people have lost their lives in Missouri, includes 108 pedestrians, 8 bicyclists, and 144 motorists. Of those riding in vehicles, 59% were unbuckled. That's actually an improvement. It used to be 67% in the past. The coalition is currently promoting a campaign during the holiday season, reminding all Missourians about increased traffic volumes and dangers posed by risky driving behaviors such as speeding, distraction, and impairment. As you partake in your holiday plans, whatever you're going, whatever you may be, please put your phone down and buckle up. This concludes my report. Before we start with the director's report, I'm going to call in Ed Hassinger to come forward and recognize an employee.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Steve Campbell to come up. You didn't know this, did you, Steve? So just a few short days ago, and I know Steve has been working on whether this decision would be made, that he has made the decision to retire at the end of the year. And of course, Steve has been a valuable member of our SMT, has 30 years of experience with the department, and is seen as a leader in our construction and materials section, and then has been a great leader leading our Springfield district over the last several years through the pandemic and through a lot of issues. And I guess the one thing that I would tell you about Steve is from the day that I asked him to take that job, his primary concern was about the employees that work for him. And he told me, he said, you know, in the first couple of months, I'm going to go visit every employee personally in the district. I said, yeah, great great aspirations, Steve. Good luck. Well, sure enough, he did that. And I think that was really key to him cementing himself in the district as the leader, and has just done a great job for us. So we're sad to see him go, but really happy that he can make that decision. And his wife is here today, and I told her, I said, you know, no give backs. He's all yours. He's all yours now. So, I just wanted to do that. And the time has been so short. Normally we would do the commission recognition, but we'll do that at some other point in the future. So we just wanted to do that while Steve was still working for us before he leaves at the end of the year. So Steve,
Great.
thank you.
I'm still mad at you, though. He texted me Sunday morning, that's how he told me. So that was nice of him to tell me. So. No, all kidding, Steve. Good luck in
Yeah,
your
good luck, yeah.
next adventure in life. And we appreciate you, and I value your friendship. I really do. Thank you. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the MoDOT Director's Report. Patrick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Thanks, everybody, for being here today. Steve, we really are sorry to see you go, but we're happy for you and excited for the next chapter in your life. And he has been a tremendous leader. He really has. Stepped up and really took charge with a great district, great people, and it's stronger now because of your presence. And that's pretty much all any of us can hope for, is to make things better during the time that we are stewards of whatever responsibilities we have. But the relationships, dozens of really interesting projects and community involvement, and some really difficult issues that Steve has navigated extraordinarily well. So thank you for your service. Outstanding. You know, I also want to recognize before I get going too much, Kevin Ward is here. He's the FHWA Missouri Division Administrator, tremendous partner. We've discussed in the last week some of the really terrific work Kevin and his team have done on Missouri's behalf, working with his partners in Washington. Namely, I'd do a shout out to the new Executive Director, Gloria Shepard. She really has done some fantastic work for us, working together to find a path forward for improvements of safety and working for load postings on bridges throughout the state. Tremendous work. Those are, you know, it's one of those things kind of behind the scenes that happens that we don't call out or recognize sometimes, but really it's the daily interaction, and sometimes those are big issues. Those can be multi-$100-million issues, and you know, Kevin's been a tremendous partner for us. So thank you for being here. And you know, is the road we're on a namesake for you, Kevin? So we happen to be on Ward Parkway here, right? So, but really do appreciate the partnership, and it continues, and it's very strong with the current administration. So start off today, I also would like to have Eric Schrader come up and introduce newest member of our senior management team. Eric.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm very pleased this morning to be able to introduce Brandy Baldwin. I'll ask Brandy to stand as our new state construction and materials engineer. Brandy's been with us about 17 years. She's a fellow Mizzou alumni and professional engineer in Missouri. She started her career in the Northeast District. She's a native to Northeast Missouri and has had several roles. And some of you may recognize her from the significant design build projects she's led, and most recently as the leader of the Leon DeRapp's I-70 Roachport Bridge project. So we've asked Brandy to step in and now take over design for construction and materials across the entire state. So I'm very pleased to introduce Brandy this morning. And later this week, we'll be introducing her to the contracting community at the AGC annual meeting. So thank you very much, Brandy, for joining us this morning.
Would you like to get a picture with Brandy for her, Mr. Chairman? We're getting our steps in. Mr. Chairman, MoDOT and its regional planning partners are currently completing work on the new high-priority unfunded needs list. Several months ago, MPOs and regional planning commissions identified needs in their respective regions through their planning processes. Next, MoDOT district staff worked with the MPOs and RPCs to prioritize regional needs collectively. This requires multiple planning entities within a MoDOT district to work collectively to create priorities among all needs identified, regardless of location. Safety, traffic volume, asset condition, all of that data is used to help select the highest priorities within a MoDOT district boundary. Last year, working with our regional partners, we moved 113 projects off that unfunded needs list worth almost $1.3 billion. That is a tremendous movement. A lot of that has to do with the inclusion of the gas tax with our planning process, the ability to draw down and plan for the federal resources that are coming. And all told now, that is north of $2 billion since we've been doing the unfunded needs for 3 years, that we've been able to move from unfunded to funded and get into our program. For this year's unfunded priorities, we've generated project-specific lists of approximately $4.7 billion in road and bridge projects, and we've designated those in 3 tiers of priority. So even through the planning process, we're really trying to move those through the process and up into and closer to our funded category. Another $1 billion in multimodal needs and nearly $4 billion more for statewide roadway needs, primarily focused on improving interstates, I-70 and looking at I-44. Those are the things that we're focused on here. So even within the unfunded needs, we have a constraint that we place on that, and in this case, about $10 billion beyond the $10 billion that we have funded in the STIP. So as you're going to hear the state design engineers report, inflation continues to be a primary concern and a problem, and our monthly bids have been coming in approximately 30% over budgeted amounts. This takes away capacity to add projects in the future years of the STIP. We're really trying to manage that. On this pace, there may not be much room, if any, to add new projects from this year's unfunded needs list to the funded STIP when we do that in June and July of this coming year. We're going to continue to work through the process with our planning partners and with you over the coming months. That's going to kick off with our financial forecast next month that we'll bring forward to you. Our financial services team is working hard on that right now, and we'll have that for you next month. Public meetings are being held around the state last week and this week on the draft unfunded needs report. The public's input is going to be reviewed and considered, and the final document will be presented to you for your consideration also in the January meeting. So we've got a lot of work coming forward. I really want to commend the commission and thank them for their leadership in really challenging the department to go beyond the constraint of current funding and think broader, to work with communities and with planning partners who have been tremendous in this effort to identify those needs beyond the current funded status. I think it's a terrific thing to have as part of our annual process. It's a fair amount of work, but it's well worth the effort. And our team, particularly our planning team, is really working hard and doing a great job with that. Today, you're going to hear a presentation on our annual report. I couldn't be more proud of the work that the department does, but when you try to highlight it in an annual report, and when you look through, this is a legislatively required document that we put together. It replaces a nearly unfunctional but 30-year package that we put together that was mandated by law. It was about 1,000 pages long, and I'd say the most unread document in the state of Missouri. And it took a tremendous amount of work to put that together. So really working with legislative leaders, working with the commission several years ago, we reconceived how we would put this information together. And I couldn't be more pleased with the way it continues to evolve. The entire purpose of this report is to simply and transparently describe what the department does. where the funding comes from and how it's invested for meeting the mission of the commission and the needs of the citizens throughout the state. The team has done a terrific job. So I wanted to highlight a few things from this year's year in review and the results document. Most importantly, and I want to kind of pause here and let this sink in. Over the last 15 years, investments in safety enhancements like guard cables and high friction surface treatments saved an estimated 951 lives in the state of Missouri. There are no more important work that we do than to use the talents and the engineering expertise of this department to deploy projects that save lives. And can you imagine, that's nearly 1,000 families that have been spared the real tragedy that comes from traffic fatality. This is not nearly enough, because during that time, we've lost, on average, between 800 and 1,000 people a year during that whole time. But in that period of time, nearly 75 lives a year have been saved by the efforts of this organization, by the investment that the commission puts out there for the state, and the focus and the attention to detail that comes from focusing on supporting the workforce and the talent and the skill of the department. We also saw a reduction in the 2022 statewide roadway fatalities compared with 2021. But lack of seatbelt use continues to be a common denominator in fatal crashes. We continue our education efforts centering on buckling up and putting the phone down every trip. We are making progress at the national level with that campaign as well. So it's not just about saving lives in Missouri. It's Missourians travel all over the country, and we want to make sure they come home safe by being in areas across the country. We work in partnership at the national and the regional level, and there are really no more important efforts that we go through. Also wanted to highlight a few internal safety focus areas. First, we've implemented the employee safety empowerment policy. We've talked about that. It gives employees the right and responsibility to take immediate action to stop work, to address imminent dangers and/or unsafe practices. Part of the safety effort was to implement a safety response team. Becky Almaroth is leading that for us. And that response team is intended to quickly make organizational and policy decisions focused on approvals related to safety items. In addition, we've implemented a new SAFER process to further incorporate safety measures. A lot of people have heard this, the work that's going on at the national level to really focus on, again, engineering improvements throughout every project that we do, to really hone in on those. Our teams come up with a really unique way to identify dozens of questions that we want all of our designers and engineers to be questioning, to be asking questions, to make sure that we're going the extra mile to make every project safer for the traveling public. This year, we've celebrated groundbreakings and marked project milestones on major projects like the Rocheport Bridge, Buck O'Neill Bridge, and I-270 North project, and the completion of the majority of the governor's focus on bridge projects. I don't want to presuppose approval, but we're getting to the point where we'll be, hopefully after today, down to 6 out of 250 bridge projects that will need to come before you for contract approval. So we're very rapidly coming to a close on that very successful program. And the leadership of the governor has been fantastic, and the General Assembly, who made those dollars available to the commission and the department. And I think it's created a terrific model for how we can work collaboratively with the administration and the General Assembly to tackle big issues that we need to tackle at the state level. And so we look forward to the session and the discussions that are coming up. There are a lot of resources available in the state. It's a very unique period of time compared to the last 30 years. I think we're very fortunate to be in this period right now and working together to the betterment of the infrastructure in the state. We've also worked on a report regarding supply chain issues and the development of the first combined state freight and rail plan. We've had a busy year. These are just a few of the highlights. Eric Schrader is going to give a full report on this, but the work of the department and you know, I'll give you a preview of Eric's report. Focus on that picture, if you will, on that front. That is a really important picture for the department and for the people that work here, and Eric will let you know a little bit about that. I also wanted to, just in closing, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to thank Brandy for stepping forward in the role that she's taking on. It's a big challenge. It's a tremendous responsibility, and as is typically the case in MoDOT, she's still managing the Rocheport Bridge at the moment too. So, you know, she's on triple duty right now. So we are very fortunate to have such a talented individual step up and take on responsibility. And that's what makes MoDOT successful. That's what makes the work that we do fun to do, is to watch people progress through their career and take on responsibility and grow and thrive. And we're really looking forward to you know, having the new toys like a research lab and a you know, a whole materials division. That is a fun place to work, and it's very important work that needs to be done. So thank you, Brandy. Mr. Chairman, that's my report. Thank you.
Patrick, any comments? Patrick?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Patrick, thank you for the great report. And it's kind of bittersweet that we have it's pretty exciting. We got 100 projects moved off of the unfunded. It'd be nice if we just only had 100, right? So I know that there's, a lot more is probably going to come on there, but at least we're making small steps to reducing that list. The annual report you mentioned includes the citizen guide, and I carry mine with me all the time, and I would recommend that anybody that hasn't looked at that or perused it, it's a good resource, and you can get it on the website, and I'm sure there'll be hard copies, but it is a great guide to help you understand transportation funding. It's well laid out and easy to read, and hopefully inflation will get under control and we can make even more progress. So thanks, Patrick.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a non-action
Mr.
item.
Chairman, I just wanted to applaud Director McKenna's comment and focus on safety. Safety is our first priority, and by my observation, we're doing a great job. But I want to especially applaud the leadership of the department to look at railroad grade crossing safety. This is one of the areas of safety that we need to really shine a light on, and I am aware of some of the things that you're working on in that area and encourage you to continue to pursue that element of safety aggressively.
Thank you. Any other comments? Next item on the agenda is a non-action item. Chris Redline, Kansas City District Engineer, is going to introduce our presenter for the chamber today. Chris.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Director McKenna. We have two presentations for you today. The first is from the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to introduce Scott Smith, co-chair of the Big Five Initiative.
Scott, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, Chris. Good morning and welcome back to Kansas City, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director McKenna, MoDOT leadership. My name's Scott Smith, and I'm the co-chair of the Chamber of Commerce's Big Five Transportation Initiative, along with Mike DeBacker, that you heard from last night at the reception from Burns & McDonnell. I'm retired from HNTB, engineering and architecture firm founded here in Kansas City, not as long ago as the Kansas City Southern, Warren, but over 100 years ago. And on behalf of the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce, I'd really like to welcome you back to Kansas City for the December tradition of a very warm and long history. The Chamber has more than 2,000 members, and we place a very high priority on having accessible, well-maintained 21st century infrastructure. It's critical for our region and for the state's economic growth. Kansas City has a long history as a freight and logistics hub of national and really of global significance. And investing to ensure that our multimodal transportation systems are state-of-the-art, safe, and efficient is really vital to the success of our businesses, our workforce. It helps ensure that Kansas City is a great place to have inclusive economic opportunity and a great quality of life. We've got a lot of exciting events on the horizon in Kansas City that are going to make the most of our transportation systems. In March of next year, the new state-of-the-art terminal at KCI is going to be opening just in time for the NFL draft that's going to be held at Union Station in April of next year. And then looking down the road, the World Cup soccer matches in 2026 are really going to put us on a global stage. And so there's a lot of buzz about those events here in Kansas City. Today, briefly, I'd like to recognize and celebrate some recent transportation achievements and give thanks where thanks is due, and then give you an overview of the Chamber's Big Five Transportation Initiative that really lays the groundwork for the next generation of multimodal improvements for our region's future. Recent achievements, as you know better than anyone, because of the coordination between the Kansas City community, MoDOT, the federal government. The Buck O'Neill replacement is well underway. This coordination has really shown a willingness of local, state, federal partnership so that a 65-year-old deteriorating bridge will now be replaced by a new state-of-the-art bridge that will serve us for decades to come. The Chamber would like to thank the Commission, MoDOT, for working on the project and really recognizing the critical importance of that link in our community. And we'd like to thank the Governor's Office, too, for their commitment to improving projects like that. We're also really excited to see the state's commitment to investing in the future with the fuel revenue increase passed last year. By increasing the fuel user fees for the first time since '96, Missouri has shown that it's committed to connecting its businesses to the world. The long overdue investment is already bringing benefits, such as allowing previously unfunded projects, as Director McKenna mentioned, to move up to the STIP for completion. And we're very excited about the progress we're seeing on I-70 as well as the I-29-35 split here in Kansas City. Excuse me. It's also positioned Missouri to really better benefit from the funding opportunities in the bipartisan infrastructure bill from the federal government. The investment resources have really come at a critical time to defend Missouri's position as a logistics hub for the nation and the world. And again, we thank everybody that was involved in that bill's passage, including the General Assembly, the Governor, the Commission, and everybody in this room that helped make that happen. We know there's going to be more work in the future, more issues that we'll have to address, but with the recent success of the Buck O'Neill Bridge, the fuel revenue increase, and increased federal funding, there's a lot to be proud about of transportation and infrastructure in Missouri right now. And with this national global spotlight coming to Kansas City, couldn't come at a better time. Now, a little bit about the Chamber's Big Five Transportation Initiative. About 10 years ago, the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce launched its Big Five Initiative. It focused on 5 community-based projects that really build on the region's strengths to really move us forward. The areas have evolved over time, but they've included things like the animal health corridor that's really important to our economy, early childhood education, making Kansas City a world-class center for entrepreneurism. And now one of the Big Five initiatives is transportation, specifically looking at innovative solutions to solve our transportation shortcomings. It's so important to our business community in that it enables trade, powers businesses, connects workers to their jobs, which is really critical, and creates opportunities for struggling communities in the region. We really have 2 active subcommittees working on these areas. One has to do with transit access to jobs, and the second has to do with our overall level of regional infrastructure investment. Adam Timmerman, who's with the Chamber, staffs those issues and does a great job of leadership. Thank you, Adam. For the work in regional investment, that committee has been working through the Chamber for the last 3 years, engaged with transportation stakeholders such as MoDOT. Chris's staff has been great to work with, KDOT, Mid-America Regional Council, the ATA, KC Streetcar, Port Authority, and a lot of local municipalities to identify the key projects that we think are important from a business perspective. From there, the chamber's been engaged with other regional chambers and business organizations on both sides of the state line to hear what are your top transportation priorities that are essential to your members. In selecting the projects that have regional priority, that business lens has really focused on projects that we think have the most access on jobs access, jobs creation, economic development, freight logistics and reliability, safety, supporting long-term strategies, equity throughout all communities, and alignment with federal funding opportunities. So the chamber over the last year has been utilizing this kind of first draft list of bi-state multimodal transportation projects to establish a basis for advocacy for the entire region. Some of the projects identified in the list were specifically highlighted in grant applications recently, including RAISE grant applications for the Centennial Bridge Replacement Project jointly with KDOT and the Bi-State Sustainable Transit Corridor, connecting Kansas City, Missouri with Independence and across the state line with KCK and Wyandotte County in Kansas. The regionally collaborative approach of working with our transportation agencies in the bi-state business community will hopefully ensure that the priorities we identified will be helpful in getting this region to advocate in Jefferson City, in Washington, and throughout the state for what we think are important from a business perspective. And then workforce access, the other area of activity. There was a study done a few years ago that showed that in the metro area here, around 10%, only 10% of jobs are reasonably accessible by public transportation within a reasonable time frame. We don't think that's acceptable. So that subcommittee is working with regional stakeholders to connect employers to employees through transportation alternative programs. Our focus there is on microtransit, on van pools, ride sharing, to directly connect employment clusters throughout the region to areas where those employees live. So for example, we're looking on how to best connect employees who live on the east side of Kansas City with job sites north of the river or even in the western part of the metro area. It's led the chamber along with other partner organizations to apply for and receive microtransit grants to help make that kind of connection. So we know the subcommittees have some pretty aggressive goals, but we literally have dozens of volunteers from the business community who've rolled up their sleeves to work on this. We think it's critical to our region that the chamber does this work. And it's in collaboration with and support of the commission, MoDOT, many other important stakeholders. As I mentioned previously, we got a lot coming on in Kansas City over the next few years. We're very excited about that. We look forward to keeping you apprised of what's going on and hope to be a resource to the commission and MoDOT as our work goes forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. Anybody have any questions for Scott, comments?
Just wanted to congratulate Scott on many things going on here in Kansas City. I feel blessed. I've been involved in many of these things, so it's very rewarding to hear them. And Kansas City's kind of got the ball rolling right now, something we're proud of. I frequently am asked by leaders around the state, you know, what's the secret sauce in Kansas City? What has made our revitalization so successful? And to me, it's collaboration. We have been exceedingly successful at collaborating, and Scott's testimony now kind of outlines that collaboration. But when we look ahead here in Kansas City, we have some really big things to think about. The World Cup is a global stage, and that we were able to bring that home to Missouri is really something. So I want to congratulate the Chamber, Mid-America Regional Council on the exemplary collaboration that we have here in Kansas City, and look forward to working with you on it.
And the commission's a big part of that collaboration as well, so thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks.
Next item on the agenda is a non-action item. Chris Redline, you're up again to introduce our presenter from Mark today.
Yes, thank you, Scott. And speaking of partnerships, we have Mid-America Regional Council here to talk to us. They're wonderful partners. We've worked with them for years. I'd say our staffs probably work daily We work so closely together, so I'd like to introduce Ron Acapulco, Director of Transportation and Environment.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Chairman Smith, members of the commission. It's a pleasure to be able to follow up Scott Smith's welcome to Kansas City. It's always great to have the commission in town. Carrying on with the theme of partnerships, that's really what I wanted to highlight today was really celebrate the great relationship that Mark has had historically with MoDOT and the commission over the years. We're celebrating our 50th anniversary at Mark this year. And that entire time has been work involved in partnership with MoDOT and other transportation stakeholders around the region. And for a few of the newer members of the commission, just wanted to spend a little bit of time introducing our organization to you. I know we're familiar to you as well, but just to reiterate, MARC is a nonprofit association of local governments in the Kansas City area. And we work in a variety of topical areas to really support local government cooperation. We're a forum to address many different types of issues ranging from transportation and environment to childcare, aging services, homeland security, and emergency services, et cetera. But one of our key roles and our key relationship with MoDOT and the commission is our role as the metropolitan planning organization for the Kansas City area. And our footprint is a 9-county region for our transportation planning work. We do that in 8 counties, 4 counties in Kansas and 4 counties in Missouri, in an area that includes a population of about 2.2 million people, 119 municipalities. So there's a lot of need for cooperation and coordination in the Kansas City region. Our primary role in transportation is really as a convening body. We bring state and local transportation stakeholders together to develop long-range transportation plans for the region, to help develop the region's transportation improvement program, to work on developing planning programs for the region related to transportation. And so we are beginning the process early next year to update the region's metropolitan transportation plan. And we'll be working very closely with MoDOT, the commission, the chamber, other stakeholders in the region as we do that work. I did want to highlight a couple of longer standing partnerships that we've had with MoDOT in the region. The first one is the Destination Safe Coalition. This is our regional safety coalition that has been around since 2004 and is really the opportunity we have to convene stakeholders that work on education, engineering, enforcement, all of the aspects related to transportation safety in the region. This is a kind of unique body in that it's by state. It also includes all of the counties in the Kansas City district. So we also work closely with the Pioneer Trails Regional Planning Commission on safety issues. This is a group that is able to coordinate messaging around public safety. We are able to allocate a small amount of funding for safety and enforcement projects in the region. And this is the body that helps us establish our targets and performance measures for transportation safety as part of our responsibility as the MPO. And the second one I wanted to highlight is the Operation Greenlight Traffic Signal Coordination System. This is a kind of an unsung activity that exists in the background, but it's really important in terms of saving people time, fuel, and improving the safety of our arterial routes that are signalized. MoDOT has 222 intersections in the Kansas City area that are part of the 750 intersection system, and we've been able to continue to grow it slowly over time. We've expanded into into Cass County in Missouri. We've expanded into Leavenworth County in Kansas. So this is a system that's grown over time, one that works really closely with the Kansas City Scout freeway management system as well. We've developed a lot of great collaboration on incident management when we see incidents on the freeway system that spill over and impact the arterial system in the region. And so these are not necessarily planning activities in and of themselves. They're important operational activities as well. And so our collaboration extends beyond our planning work into safety and operations in the region. I also wanted to highlight, Director McKenna's mentioned this already this morning, the great working relationship that we have with MoDOT, with the district staff in particular, in developing the unfunded needs list and seeing those projects progress. We're really gratified to have seen several projects from last year's list actually move on to the SIP and begin implementation. We've been working this year to develop an updated list for that, and we'll be hosting a public meeting this evening at our offices downtown for the public to review and comment on the unfunded needs. And I was not going to go through these in an extensive amount of detail, but I just did want to highlight the work we've done to develop these 3 tiers. Acknowledge that they've been developed in consideration of the policy goals and objectives in our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, the Connected KC 2050 plan, input from staff priorities from the district staff about what's important on the MoDOT system here, and then input from our planning partners, our local government partners through our committees at MARC. And so we've got a 3-tier approach to the unfunded needs list. We have identified the I-70 improvements on I-435 to I-70 is really the top tier project that we'd like to move into the list if we're successful. And I understand there's an action item today to begin doing that with the design build project on the I-70 corridor there. But we've got projects listed throughout the MARC area that are on MoDOT system that are important priorities for the region. And finally, I'd like to leave you with some future partnership opportunities that we're really excited about the potential of working with the Commission and MoDOT on. Scott had highlighted the Bi-State Sustainable Reinvestment Corridor. That's a project that we're excited about. We would not have gotten it without MoDOT support. MoDOT provided an important support letter for our application for a RAISE grant last spring, which we were successful in obtaining. And we're in the process right now of working with the Federal Transit Administration to begin work on that corridor. But it includes some MoDOT facilities, certainly the US 24 corridor out in Jackson County is going to be an important centerpiece of that work. Our board and committees have also in the last year adopted a climate action plan, which we feel is really timely with the emphasis in the bipartisan infrastructure law on carbon reduction and climate resilience. And we really look forward to the opportunity to work with MoDOT as a partner in addressing carbon reduction needs. There's a carbon reduction program that is in the bipartisan infrastructure law to really help reduce the impact of the transportation sector on greenhouse gas emissions and improve the resilience of the transportation system as we see climate change and increased severe weather events that may impact the transportation system. We're also excited about the opportunities that the developments around electric vehicles are presenting. We, on the Kansas side of the region, will soon see a major manufacturing facility. Panasonic is locating a facility to manufacture batteries for electric vehicles here. And so we see that really augmenting Kansas City's role as a hub for automotive industry and look forward to working with MoDOT on siting more electric vehicle charging stations throughout the region and beginning to get a handle on what the introduction of electric vehicles is really going to mean for our regional fleets, what it's going to mean for funding. There are a number of issues related to that I think are going to be important that we cooperate together on. And then finally, MoDOT is completing the state rail and freight plan, and that provides us an opportunity to kind of target that in the Kansas City area as well. We have a major item on our work program to update the region's freight strategic plan, which we've not had an opportunity to do since 2009. So we'll be working closely with your staff on that work as well. And so with that, I just once again wanted to highlight how significant the partnerships that we've had between MARC and MoDOT have been, and how much we look forward to continuing those in the future. And I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ron.
No, Ron, thank you for being here today. And, it is a great partnership we have with MARC, as we continue to develop these plans for transportation needs in this area. And lots of good things, as Commissioner Reardon said, happening in Kansas City. So we appreciate you and all your hard work. Sorry I didn't get a chance to speak to you last night. But thank you, and thank your team.
Patrick?
Yeah, I just want to thank Ron as well. The leadership of MARC has been tremendous in developing the region. But, we've said it before, but we would not be able to be viewing that construction on the Buck O'Neill Bridge had it not been for Mark's leadership. They received sub-allocated federal funds. And as you can see, even in the lists of unfunded needs, there are tremendous needs in this region. And the ability to navigate and communicate and work across the counties and all the different interests that were seeking that $40 million that Mark set aside in the hope that we could put a financial package together that 40 million was instrumental in receiving a federal grant that kind of put us over the edge, the $25 million build grant. And then, of course, the city of Kansas City came very, very large with a cost share match of $72 million. But Mid-America Regional Council, had they not had the foresight to do that a couple years ahead of time and sustained that effort, and sometimes a little bit difficult to sustain that, but that leadership was exactly what was needed, and fit together very nicely with the commission's desire to get this done as well. So without that leadership of Mid-America Regional Council, we would not be seeing, nearly 50% complete on Buck O'Neill today. So thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Mr. Chairman, just a point of personal privilege. I believe Ron has been at Mark longer than I've been at Kansas City Southern, which is saying something. Forever, yeah. But yeah, just so the commissioners know, he's the invisible hand behind all these things we see happening here in Kansas City. He may not be the most visible person, but he's the hand behind it. And he's had a sterling career at Mark. And on behalf of the commission and Kansas City, thanks for your career at Mark.
Thank you, Commissioner Erdman. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ron. Next item on the agenda is an action item. Travis Kestner, State Design Engineer, will present bids for consideration. Travis?
Good morning, Chairman Brinkman,
morning.
Commissioners, Director McKenna. I bring to you the results from the November 18th, 2022 bid opening, in which MoDOT received 118 bids on 40 calls, and we recommend the following to you today. And that's to award all calls to the lowest responsive bidder except calls A01 located in the Northwest District, call B05 located in the Northeast District, and calls H01 and H02 in the Southeast District. We recommend rejection of calls A01, B05, and H01 due to excessive bids for Section 102 of the Missouri Highway Standard Specifications. And also, we recommend that call H02 to be awarded contingent upon receiving additional deposit from the city of Sykeston. So those are our recommendations to you today.
Thank you. We have a motion? Second?
So moved. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. All opposed, or all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Travis, do you have an update for us?
Yeah, I have a couple. We did, as Director McKenna mentioned earlier, we had a couple focus on bridges today. So we're going to finish the rest of those up between now and March. So we awarded 2 of those bridges just by your action. So that has us at an award total of 244 bridges, which leaves 6 bridges left. And we're just a little bit over budget yet on that, but actually pretty good for as long as those bridges have been stiff. Today we're around $14.4 million over budget, which is a lot of money, but for that program spanning out over 3 or 4 years, that's pretty good. So today's awards leaves us at $179 million for today, which is award total to date of over $850 million, which is a pretty good amount. We are over budget with inflation by around 29%, which is $196 million. But if you look at that yearly total, that's 6 months into this fiscal year. And if you look at some of the past recent years, that's actually a larger total than we've had in some past recent fiscal years. So we've got a lot of work out there on the streets. So.
Great. Any comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. It's frustrating that inflation is really putting a damper on what we could truly do. But we are making progress, and it's great to see that the project in Sullivan County is moving forward. And I just want to thank the MoDOT people in Northwest, especially Marty, I know it's been challenging up there, and just all your leadership and doing what needs to be done to get that project moving. Thanks.
Yeah, we don't talk about a lot of jobs and details. There's some pretty impactful jobs just in this bid opening, as there is in every bid opening. So encourage folks to go out there and take a look and notice what's going on. A lot of great things happening. So
Great. I think at this time, Ed Hassinger will come up and give us some comments regarding an agenda item.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that you, we're going to award bids today, so we didn't know if we were going to do this or not. But Commissioner Eckert just mentioned A08, which is in the bids that you just awarded. And that's better known as the East Locust Creek Reservoir Project. And so a few years ago, there was a grant, a federal grant that was given to Sullivan County to do that project. Made some commitments of MoDOT unbeknownst to us. And the commission had to go to work to figure out how we were going to successfully complete that. And some of you don't remember, but there was a lot of hand-wringing about how to get that done. And so what I want to do today, you heard earlier in the meeting, we recognize a lot of great people that do great work, like Travis and Chris and Brandy and Steve. I want to call Rick Orr up. Rick, where are you? Rick, come here. So you talk about the hand behind the things that gets things done. Rick is the project manager who had a full plate of stuff to do already and probably more than he can do. And Marty had the good sense to appoint Rick to take on this project. And he really had to take something that was a little more than a rough concept. Really somebody else did, and turn it into a project that could be delivered under federal rules. Had to get grants transferred from Sullivan County to MoDOT so that we could complete the project. And so today, during a lot of what I'd saw contentious discussions, Rick is one of the most cool people under fire that just completely bored right through and got a lot of things done that I'm not sure that many of us could have done. So I want to present Rick with a leadership coin today for his efforts to move that East Locust Creek project forward and for the milestone of you awarding that bid today. So Rick, great job.
Oh, that's right, we're getting our steps. Okay, next item on the agenda is a non-action item. Brenda Morse, Chief Financial Officer, will present on bonding. Brenda?
I'm here today to share with you the results of the recent bond sale. Last month, you approved us to move forward with selling $500 million of Amendment 3 bonds to fund projects in the statewide transportation improvement program. On November 15, 2022, a competitive sale was held. The sale was successful. The commission issued just over $453 million of bonds to receive proceeds of $500.6 million. The bonds were sold at a premium, which means investors were willing to pay more money for the bonds to ensure they got the coupon rate on the bonds. The interest rate on the bonds was 2.991%, which is a good rate given the current market environment. The rate we were using for planning purposes, just for kind of comparison, was 4.55%, so 2.991% was much better than that. We had good participation from the banks. We had 8 bids received and had 32 banks participate either as a lead bank or as part of a syndicate. All but one of the banks in our pre-qualified investment banking pool participated. Of the 32 banks, 9 disadvantaged business enterprise firms participated and 4 veteran-owned firms participated. While competition was tight, Jeffries LLC placed the winning bid. So congratulations to the commission on a successful sale, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions?
No questions, just comment. Good job.
Thanks.
2.99, yeah.
Mr. Treese?
It's outstanding.
Mr. Chairman, and let me echo that as well. I do have one quick question. What is the length of the term of the bonds?
The total length is 10 years, so the average length winds up being 5.6,
Yeah.
something like that.
And let me just reiterate on behalf of the commission, I mean, the interest rate you were able to secure in the competition with the bidders, I think is great. To get anything below 3%, to front load all of these projects with today's money, to kind of safeguard against inflation. I think we're going to be even better than that. And the beneficiaries of course are the traveling public and the taxpayers, to put this money to work sooner and faster.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Next item on the agenda is a non-action item. Chris Redline, Kansas City District Engineer, is going to present an update on the district. Chris?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm here to present on the Kansas City District. My name is Chris Redline, District Engineer. Just for a refresher on Kansas City, we're 9 counties. We have Platte, Clay, Ray across the northern tier. We have Jackson, Lafayette, and Saline across the central tier, and Cass, Johnson, and Pettis in the southern tier. We have about 3,100 miles of interstate, and that equates to almost 8,000 lane miles to maintain. I showed this slide last year, I believe, and our greatest challenges really haven't changed. Turnover and retention continues to be a challenge. Upcoming winter season, homeless population, and litter. Here's a summary of where we're at on staffing. Last year, our turnover rate was 18%. In Q1 of this year, we're right around 6%. So we're actually worse off so far, but I'm happy to report that it seems like the attrition has slowed. But we're yet to have a month where we're bringing on more people than we're losing, but the gap is definitely narrowing quite a bit. We've hired 17 maintenance employees since July 1. We're authorized 639 employees in the Kansas City District, and we currently have 482 employed. That's 157 vacancies. The biggest concern is they aren't spread equally. Urban maintenance, which I'm calling Clay, Platte, and Jackson County, we're down 75 maintenance workers, and those are the same folks that drive the trucks, they're the CDL folks. And then operations actually accounts for 106 of those vacancies. Because of that, some of our maintenance buildings have shrunk in size so much that they really couldn't effectively work some of our operations. They were having to team with their neighbors, and it's just not nearly as efficient to do that. So we had to make the tough decision to temporarily consolidate 4 buildings into 2. And unfortunately, you can see it's really the urban area. So we consolidated Platte City and Northmore down at Northmore. And we consolidated Stadium North and Mulberry out at Stadium North. Just for some perspective, Mulberry and Stadium North are supposed to have 34 employees, and combined they have 15. And Platte City and Northmore, they're supposed to have 24, and they're down to 10. So, anytime you consolidate a building, even on a temporary basis, it's a big challenge because whoever's in charge of that building takes on double the area. They have to incorporate new employees. So I want to recognize Brian Dalby. He is heading the consolidation in Northmore and Platte City. Where's Brian? Thank you, Brian. And I don't believe Greg Morgan was able to make it today, but you met Greg Morgan last year. He gave the safety minute, and I think Chairman, you and he had a good discussion about the homeless challenges at that meeting. Upcoming winter season. I mentioned I'm concerned about it. I am, but I can tell you that I am so impressed with the way the state is working together as a whole to mitigate those challenges. All the districts are going to push in to help Kansas City. Actually, part of Northwest District is permanently taking some of our highways just to take those off our plate so we can push into the urban core a little more. Depending on the storm, the severity of the storm, how regional it is, we may be inserting strike teams from, far away as Southeast District into Kansas City to help us out. And we had a little test of this, I guess 2-3 weeks ago now, but I went up to Kearney at shift change in the evening to see the Kearney folks and also the Northwest District folks. And there was 3 folks from Unionville. Well, Unionville, if you don't know, is just a stone's throw from Iowa, north central Missouri. And I asked those guys, I said, how about going to the downtown loop plow? They're like, we're ready. So that's just a testament to the dedication we have at MoDOT, that you can take some folks that totally rural area, they're willing to help in the downtown loop to plow it fast. So it was great to see. Litter and homeless continue to be a concern for us. You can see, back in 2015, we hardly got any calls on that, almost 0 calls on homeless. So it slowly ratcheted up. And then really the big spike was in 2020, and that coincided with the pandemic. It coincided with our staffing level reduction, and it coincided with our inability to use incarcerated crews to help remove the litter. The problem hasn't subsided. We still get a lot of phone calls about it. We have some pretty good plans in place. Back in June, we led a litter removal contract, and it covers 62 miles of interstates in Kansas City. It includes I-29, I-70, 670, I-49, US 71. The contractor cycles every 2 weeks. So they pick up the same location every 2 weeks, and they pick up, as a crew of 10, they pick up 1,000 pounds a day on an area that they had just picked up 2 weeks prior. There's 1,000 pounds of additional trash. So it's just incredible the amount of trash on our highways. We also are having some pretty good success with the homeless camp cleanup contract. That involves the contractor posting the notice and then coming back with social services, incorporating PD if necessary, because sometimes that is necessary, and then also doing the cleanup. And we continue to develop more partnerships with the downtown area and the city of Kansas City through this process. And it's going to become even more important because you heard about the NFL draft coming up, and obviously 2026 we have World Cup coming to Kansas City as well. Here's just some of the things that our operations folks deal with. Since we spoke last time, we've had some pretty big emergencies we had to respond to. I-29 northbound, up in Platte County, we had an expansion joint just come out and to shut down. When you shut down interstate, you got a whole bunch, you got to figure out where to put them and sign for it. It's a big, big issue. We've been struggling with the Bond Bridge expansion joints, but actually right now we're doing a permanent fix on them. But every time one of those would pop, it was a pretty significant response for us. We're also going to be doing a permanent fix on the 435 bridge expansion joint, kind of down at the triangle area. That'll be going on starting this week, I believe. And we also had on Berry Road up north where it crosses 169, we had a oversized vehicle hit it and bend the far girder out. And we evaluated it. Bridge engineers said it was safe to continue driving on it. Well, then somebody else came through and finished it off, ripped it in half, and actually pulled it away from the bridge deck. And so we had to shut 169 down until we could torch out the metal and then get an engineering evaluation done. What we ended up doing was just closing the one lane of the bridge, and we're able to run on it still. But and then I'm sure you've heard about this one, the I-70 bridge fire we had recently. And I'll go into some detail on that. It was a pretty incredible response. What happened here was we had some homeless folks that had actually built containments under the girder. They built a floor and a wall, and then actually kind of sealed it with that spray foam. So it was like super tight. And what we think happened was those two folks in there. There was a space heater plus 4 or 5 20-pound propane canisters. And what everybody thinks happened, no one knows for sure, but we think the space heater caught something on fire. And then it started burning. And then once the propane tanks get to a certain temperature, they start, emergency relief valves start blowing off. We have 5 of them blowing off in a contained area. And it was just an inferno. And unfortunately, there was a young lady that tragically died in that fire. It was awful. And then, eventually everything burnt and the floor fell out. Then at least the heat could dissipate a little bit. But you can see the damage on that right picture, all that warp. That's the girder holding up the center of the bridge. Pretty amazing. But when we came into work Thursday morning on January 13th, we saw the news reports of the fire. Our maintenance and ER staff shut down I-70 at 4:35 and worked with our communications staff and Kansas City Scout to reroute traffic. Design immediately started laying out a traffic control plan to close the center lane, so at least we get some traffic back on westbound I-70. I don't think I said the location. This is just east of downtown, over near 18th Street over the railroad tracks. So it affected morning rush hour coming into downtown. And then we started calling our contractors to see what availability they had for concrete traffic barrier and traffic control. And then hazmat was en route to clear the site. So when we could get in there, it was safe for us to get in there. Everything I just told you happened before we even had a chance to inspect the bridge. We just knew enough from the road. We just were so proactive getting on it. And once we were able to inspect the bridge, we saw that. What you can't see in that picture, though, is the girder is pulled away from the deck several inches. So the deck is not resting on anything. It warped laterally and vertically. We did determine we could open the outside lanes, which we thought we could do, but we need to keep the center lane closed. And we actually had to use concrete barrier because we couldn't have any traffic on that since that center bridge deck portion was not supported at all. Industry stepped up, got our concrete barriers out there, got all our traffic control out there, and then a snowstorm hit Saturday. So then we go to plowing snow and dealing with ice. And nonetheless, January 16th at 3 p.m., just in time for the Chiefs to play the Steelers, we pulled all the traffic control, and then we actually had to plow it and treat it and let the salt work before we could open it. So it was just an unbelievable team effort. The upper left picture shows just a very small portion of the team that was involved in this, but we had design folks, construction, maintenance, ER, safety, communications, Scout, KC Bridge, and Central Office Bridge. It was just one incredible team effort to see everybody come together like that.
Chris, didn't you have people that were under the bridge working on it come out, jump in a plow truck and plow?
Oh, yeah.
Same people,
yeah.
right? Amazing.
Same people, yep. And, a few weeks later, we're actually able to open the bridge to all the lanes. And you can see in that right picture, you can kind of see that window you're looking through. That's actually the temporary shoring that we built under the bridge. It took us several weeks to get that built. And then we had to place concrete in between the gap between the bridge deck and the girder. So we were able to get it open back up.
So is that 2 wide flanges together that are warped that we're seeing, the bottom flange of 2 wide flanges? And did we cut those out and put new ones in?
I'm sorry, I can't.
Do we have to cut those out and put new wide flanges up in there?
We haven't cut anything out. We determined we could just place false work and support it. And we inspect them occasionally to see if there's any settlement. And we haven't seen any settlement. And the bridge is performing fine. The most prominent project in Kansas City, which Director McKenna already talked about, was Buck O'Neill Bridge. We were able to see it yesterday. Just an awesome project. Due to be completed in December of 2024. We got some big impacts coming. Southbound 169 will be closed late January, February for 600 days. And that's because we have to tie the old into the new, and that's the only way to do that. And, without the city, Kansas City, and Mark's support, we would not even be talking about this project today. So thanks to both of them. Another great project we had 2 old bridges over Chipman and Lee Summit. That's 50 Highway. And it's highly commercialized. on both sides of the road. And question is, how do you do that to minimize impacts or shorten the timeline? So we actually did fairly impactful construction, but it was so much quicker. So this was awarded to Pyramid Contractors for $5.6 million. These bridges were built in 1975. We got new bridges, ADA improvements, sidewalks, and we repaved Chipman. We actually closed Chipman completely, so you could not go underneath. And we closed 50 Highway, and then we ran the traffic down the off-ramps and just right back up on the on-ramps. And we're able to knock 5 months off the schedule doing that. With social media, we got a lot of feedback on this job, and surprisingly, it was very good because people traveling could see every day something was different, something else had been built. So, and then we did a really good job coordinating with the Chamber of Commerce and local folks about traffic changes and schedules and things like that. The job just went great. And Lisa Rayburn, where's she at? She's here somewhere. She was one of the inspectors on the project, so I wanted to point her out, and you'll meet her at lunch today. And we started in March, cut the ribbon September 23rd, and opened a few days later. And I'd like to thank Governor Parson, Commissioner Smith, and Director McKenna for helping us cut the ribbon that day. Some other projects we're working on is we have several things we're working on I-70, but only one of them is funded, and that's the west section that's in the STIP. That's from Paseo out to 40 Highway. We're currently reevaluating the environmental work that was done prior. We've had 3 public meetings. We've seen over 150 folks attend those. We're doing a lot of online involvement. We're meeting with community groups, neighborhood groups. We have a neighborhood association put together we're meeting with. And we're working very well with the city on this too. We have regular meetings to coordinate because there's so much to coordinate on projects like this with water and sewer and their boulevard system, and it's a very complicated project. And then as you saw on Ron's presentation, 435 or I-70 from 435 to 470 is recommended to move up in priority. And we're also working on a big Pell study, planning and environmental linkages that involves 2935 and US 69. We've had one public meeting and had over 60 people attend it. It was actually a very good meeting. We got a lot of really good feedback. It's on schedule to complete this summer. And then whatever comes out of this Pell, we're going to probably move right into environmental work to actually start identifying projects and doing a lot deeper dive into things. This study was funded with a Bill grant along with Kansas City, Missouri. Employee recognition, one thing we take really seriously is recognizing our employees. MoDOT has a recognition program, and we take full advantage of that. So far this year, we have recognized 205 different employees in the Kansas City district. We believe our process is very good because it's streamlined, it goes fast, and we believe you'll see it at Innovations Challenge coming up. Here's just some of the things we recognize our folks for. Outstanding response to the I-70 fire, delivering 8 projects and 1 letting. Somebody reviewed a purchase card statement and had a really good catch on a mistake. Chris Scholl Safety Observer Program, you'll see that at Innovation Challenge also. Outstanding response to the various emergencies we just spoke about. Folks are stepping up to take extra roles, outstanding teamwork. Had a group that saw an environmental issue and mitigated it very quickly, kept it from getting really bad. And then we had a contractor run across I-70 downtown, and I think somebody reported it to me, so it was actually a permit issue. By that afternoon, our leader of our permit department had the permittee and the subcontractor and the prime in the room setting things straight on safeties, because we want those folks to go alive just like we want ourselves to go home alive. And lastly, we recognize service anniversaries. We recognize on 5-year increments. This year was kind of unique because in 2020 and 2021, we didn't do this because of the pandemic. So we were playing catch up. And so we had a lot of recognition events. Last year you met Greg Morgan. He was an emergency response operator. He had well over 40 years of experience. He's still with us and doing just fine. But I would like to recognize the next three folks in line of experience. And I'm glad they could make it today. But Brad Bronk is a transportation project designer with 35 years. John Van Winkle is a senior highway designer. And Judy Magruder is our support services manager. So. Interesting thing about Brad's career is he actually did the initial design on Highway 152, which everybody up here now just takes for granted, right? But when we were working on it, it was timber and hills and John, his first job was a little bridge on Route 13 north of Richmond in Ray County. And one thing interesting about Judy is she is a 21-year veteran of the U.S. Army Reserves. So thank you. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chris. Any comments from Chris? Commissioner Boatwright.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, Chris, just wanted to really thank you for your leadership and your team for, with the challenges with being short-staffed. I mean, to work through them and still get work done, and for the people in the community not to notice is a big deal. And I think that can be attributed to your leadership. So really appreciate everything you're doing. Love when you touched on the rest of the state jumping in and helping. It's much easier for these districts to work in silos, and for the operation and maintenance staff just to stay in their silos. For them to jump out and to help in other places is really tough. And I think we've done an outstanding job throughout the state, stepping up and really, certainly during these snow events, of making it happen. So just appreciate you very much. Thanks.
We have a great team in Kansas City and across the state too.
Patrick?
Chairman, Chris, I want to echo Commissioner Boatwright's comments. Great job on the fire. That happened shortly after I came back on the commission and I saw we were shutting down I-70. I thought, oh boy, great job. I also had the opportunity to attend one of your road crew safety training sessions, and I was thoroughly impressed with the degree to which the department trains up the road crews on safety. Congratulate you on that. I want to come back to the fire for a moment because it really illustrates something that I think I'm very interested in. The issue of homelessness on our rights of way is not only an issue for the department, but it's a human tragedy, and nothing illustrates that more than the fire. I know you're working closely with local agencies to take a look at this. The thing I'm most interested in is prevention. I think it's as important to prevent this as it is to mitigate it. And there's been a lot of investment in our community in addressing the growing homeless problem in Kansas City. I know you're working with them. I really want to encourage you to develop partnerships with the people in Kansas City who are attempting to address the homelessness issue, in no small part to prevent the kind of tragedy that we saw at I-70. If we can prevent those kinds of things before, and it's not possible to prevent them all, but if we can prevent them, then we don't have the mitigation and we avoid some of the tragic consequences. I know in Kansas City, the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, the Community Improvement District for downtown, and others are very focused on providing homeless services that we're not equipped to provide. And I hope we're able to partner with them to look at a prevention strategy as much as a mitigation strategy. And as you observed with the World Cup coming, the NFL draft, these are going to be things I'm going to be very focused on.
Patrick?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chris, for a great report and for your leadership through some pretty challenging times. But I just wanted to highlight, if you look at Chris's greatest challenges, turnover and retention, winter, homeless, and litter. Those are all operating budget issues. That's what those are. And, for 30 years, the department has struggled financially. And, that's all well documented, well discussed, and well hashed over. We've just punched through in the last couple of years on the capital side to a level of investment that I think is the level where we need to sustain to make progress. And that's what we're seeing. When we're moving things off the unfunded list, we're making progress. We're trending in the right direction. We are not yet trending in the right direction on the operating side of the house. And this requires attention. The operating side of the house is where the department meets taxpayer expectations or doesn't. And we are not. And, one of the things we try to do, and we do it somewhat gently, sometimes more specifically in our citizens guide, we recognize litter and trash pickup as a primary customer complaint, concern, and one that, as Chris mentions, we just closed, hopefully temporarily, 2 of our busiest facilities here that would otherwise have resources available to handle some of those issues, and we don't have them right now. That's not meeting the expectations of the citizens in this region or in other regions of the state. And one of the things when we do kind of statewide reporting on things like turnover, we obscure the real crisis that is occurring, particularly in our urbanized areas within our own organization. So while, we're trending in the right direction across the state, that trend is not being felt in these very densely urbanized areas where some of the most intense operating support is necessary. And we have not found the key to solving that yet. And that I take that on as a budgetary challenge, as a operational and as an organizational challenge in the coming years. And if we don't solve this, we will not satisfy that. You've got a public that is paying more in gas tax. And we need to make sure that we direct some of those resources directly to this operation so that the citizens feel that impact on improved service in these areas, whether we do it in a contracted fashion, whether we do it, ultimately we have to support the staff, and we have to continue to move toward the market approach to our compensation structure. And that includes recognizing the market and the job in the urbanized area is more challenging. And that's not to say it isn't challenging throughout the state. It has additional challenges that come with it. We're not in a balanced position yet. We have a lot of work to do. It's hard work to do. It's controversial work to do. The moves we've made to move toward market compensation have been controversial. They have been incredibly necessary, and they haven't met the mark yet. And I just want to recognize that. But Chris feels that every day. His team feels it every day, and we need to support him and his operation better than we are today to improve that service. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Patrick.
Mr. Chairman, could I make one comment?
Sure.
Captain Wilhoit, Highway Patrol is here with us today. I just want to thank him for being here today and also thank him for the partnership that our staff shares. So thank you.
Yeah, we're glad you're here too, Captain. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a non-action item. Eric Schrader is going to present the department's annual report. Eric?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director McKenna. I'm very pleased to be able to come this morning and give you a little bit of overview and summary of the annual report. It's a great document, and I'm here to represent the work of 5,000 MoDOT employees that we try to summarize in 87 pages. So a couple of things. So the annual report is actually a collection of documents, the year in review, the Citizens Guide to Transportation Funding, MoDOT's results, the financial snapshot, and the annual comprehensive audit. So last month you received the annual comprehensive audit. So today I'm going to talk about the other documents. And thing to note here is that as this is required to be then presented to the transportation oversight between the Senate and the House, and as Patrick told you in his opening, this has come from 1,000 pages that nobody looked at to a much more reader-friendly and much-used document now. So we're very proud of that steps we've made. So the first one is the year in review. So a couple of things here. One of the first ones that I really want to talk about is the record amount in the STIP, the Statewide Transportation Improvement Plan, $10 billion. And we can't go past that too fast because it's easy to say 10 billion, but 10 billion is a monumental amount of money. And it's a monumental investment in this state's transportation system that we've never had. And it takes a lot of people to make that happen. And it's also the people in Missouri that pay for that are making that happen. So it's important that we acknowledge that in the first part of the year in review, is that is work to come, and some that you've just awarded today that we've already gotten started on. But that is putting that to work. The next part in there is acknowledging and celebrating the 100 years of the commission. And this is, I don't think we can go by this too quick, because it's hard to imagine that in 1922, elected officials and policymakers had the foresight to put in place a form that still serves today, right? I can't get an operating system that lasts more than like 6 months on my phone, right? How fast things update. And you realize that the form that they set up 100 years later is still serving Missouri citizens. And I think it's important that we celebrate that because we really recognize that greatness that we stand on there. The next one on here is the Governor's Awards. This is a competition held across all government agencies, and consistently MoDOT's in the hunt. And this year we took home 2 again. And it's not every agency wins. So we get some cross-eyed looks from our competitors sometimes, but we're very proud of the teams. And one of them that won was here in Kansas City, the I-35 and 152 interchange, and a very unique and complex design of using a displaced left turn for its innovations and how it supported the communities and worked with it. That was one of the Governor's Awards for this year. We're right here in Kansas City. Of course, the supply chain task force meetings went on across the state as we worked with all the modes of transportation and all the industries throughout Missouri of what do we do in this challenging times as everybody's talking about supply chain, but more than just talking about what can we do not only as elected officials, but also policymakers and others to make freight and commerce in Missouri go. And then, of course, we highlight some of our major projects. And these are everything from critical agriculture projects like the Farm Group. So Farm is fixing access to rural Missouri. This is a group of rural one-lane, poor condition bridges that support one of those key agricultures in Missouri that we're able to bundle together in the design build and have one contractor take on replacing these bridges. And we were able to secure special funding through Washington, D.C. to do this, all the way down to the Buck O'Neill Bridge, which you toured yesterday, to the 270 on a major freight corridor, and of course, the Leon DeRapp's I-70 bridge at Roachport, a key vital link across our state. So we highlight some of our major projects that hit on everything from our agriculture industry to our freight movement to keeping everybody safe as some of our things in our year in review. So the next one is kind of the core document, I say, and Mr. Eckert said this very well about the Citizens Guide to Transportation Funding. This has evolved over 6 years now, 7 almost. That we think 2016 was the first iteration of it, and we've changed it up each year. And this takes a very complex business. This is a $2.8 billion a year in complex funding from many sources and tries to put that in a reader-friendly and also graphical, handy to use. So as it mentions, it's for our Citizens Guide, but it also works very well with policymakers and our partners in transportation to help us all be on the same footing to understanding some of the complexities that go on. So I mentioned it has graphical form for a lot of the information. This is one of the examples for the funding. Where's the money come in, and then where is it invested? So it shows the different sources, how that totals up, and then the different places that it then flows out to be invested in transportation. Most people don't realize that that's what it takes for that 2.8 billion. It's not just simply one source, it's many, and that there are many places in that it's invested and utilized across the state. Now, we also have to talk this year about one that's, we saw the impact really kick in the last quarter of last fiscal year, and this is inflation. So last fiscal year in the last quarter is when we really saw this take off. And we ended the fiscal year there at a little over 11% inflation. And now, as Travis just told you this morning, we're closer to 30% and almost $196 million ahead for this fiscal year. That's important to note. There's only so many things we can do to manage that. We're working diligently to do that, but it does have an impact because it impacts future years, as we just talked about. That's eating into some of that funding in future years. So it's important that we acknowledge that in here. And that's part of helping our partners and our citizens understand the balance that goes on with transportation. So I've talked a little bit about the policy and the people and the funding. Now it's the people. And this is our piece on annual turnover. And as you just heard Chris talk about closing maintenance buildings because there's simply not enough people to do the work safely. When you look at this as an organization that last year, 900 people left the organization. Now to put that in some context, that's 20 people a week, every week. Every week, 20 people. That's quite a load on our HR and our supervisors and our training teams and everybody else. We're diligently working to replace those people, but at the same time, 20 people each week were leaving the organization. So when you look at the great things that Chris just talked about delivering and the dedication of the people, and some of them in this room that have continued to deliver projects while we're working through that, that's important. Now, the other piece to note here, and this is important for you as a commission, there's about a $50 million cost to this. It's not just simply the 900 people, it's that there's a real cost and then there's an opportunity cost that's lost here too, of retraining, recruiting, all the things, and then simply the work that's not able to get done, or the fact that we're having to hire and pay premium prices to get some things done, such as litter patrol and things of that nature. So it's important we talk about the funding in the Citizens Guide, but also talks about some of the realities because it takes people, and our people do the great stuff. And this is one of the challenges, and you can see by the graph here that this one has continued over the last 5 years. And that cost is each year that just mounts, and that's a kind of a hidden cost to the taxpayers that eats into it. So the next piece I want to talk about is operations, that service that Patrick was mentioning. There's a cost to doing that. And inside the Citizens Guide, we help people understand the $591 million. What services does that cover? So you see the key ones here from repairing our roads. And we talk about winter and bridge maintenance and striping, traffic signals, mowing and litter. People find it amazing to realize that we mow 400,000 acres. Right, so that's 300,000 football fields of mowing. So when you're struggling at home to keep up in the middle of summer with mowing, think about our crews that are doing the same. And when you think of it, then you factor in the 900 people turnover. There's a reason it takes us a little while to get some things accomplished. But there's a monumental system that we take care of here, and that's part of it. So it's helping people understand that that money is invested in operations that provide services. That's what that brings. Here in the wintertime, because one of the things I always say about winter work, we will spend millions and millions of dollars and not have anything to show for it come July, right? But keeping the transportation moving and keeping people safe, that's an important investment. And we talked a little bit about the unfunded needs as we've added that into this over time now too. And we're very proud to say that we've been able to move 133 projects off the unfunded needs list into the funded category. And you heard our speakers today also talk about the update that's going on with one of the public meetings tonight as we're adding back into that. So I like to refer to the unfunded needs as the on deck circle. Being a St. Louis Cardinal baseball fan, it is our on deck. These are the ones that we know are next, but we're not called up just yet. And we've worked diligently.
You do know you're in Kansas City, right?
I know.
Okay.
I have to poke a few of my friends while I'm.
Thank you, Patrick. I was getting ready to say something.
But that's important that we look at, because one of the things that's critical here is helping people understand while we've increased funding, we also know there is billions of dollars that we're not meeting. Right. And that's across the entire state. For every region is working on their portion of the unfunded needs, which we'll bring back to you in January, this is everywhere. The vital needs of transportation and all across the state. While we've increased the funding at the federal and state level, that is great, but there is still a lot of desire and demand out there. And this helps us, though, put that into reality, because it's, when you just talk about dollars, people's eyes kind of roll back. But when you can talk about the project on a specific route and place, that's what moves things ahead. That's what brings some interest and gets people to see what's the benefit, which one should go next. And it's a difficult conversation to have in a region as to prioritizing this. That is not an easy thing to do, and our team does a great job at facilitating that across the state. So the next document that's included is the financial snapshot. And as I mentioned, you received the audit last month, which is very in-depth. This is a little more, I'll say, reader-friendly and condensed version of the finances of a very complex organization. So some of the things kind of answer some of those most commonly asked questions. And the most common one right now is the increase in fuel tax. Well, this version of the Citizens Guide, the financial snapshot, includes the information about what the increase of 2.5 cents has meant. It includes where's the money go, what are cities and county shares. You can also see down to the county level how much is invested in each county in the state of transportation dollars. It also tracks and helps understand some of the federal aid that flows into MoDOT and then out to other partners across the state. So I think the snapshot is a great term for it because it gives you some of those frequently asked things without having to go all the way through a large financial audit to see. Another piece that's contained in there, and these are more than just interesting facts. I think these are important because this is some of the data behind it that we use for strategic and policy direction. Because these are two things. These are the users of the system, but these are also the funders of the system, right? So understanding the vehicles that are out there, what's running on the highway system, but also these are the people that are paying the licensing fees, paying the gas tax. So it's two parts. So more than just interesting facts, it also helps us in policy discussion, but it also does help put a little perspective on things when you see 4.2 million licensed drivers in the state of Missouri and 3 million gallons of fuel needed a year to keep that system going. Now, the next document I want to talk about is our results document. And results is part of our culture at MoDOT, has been for over a decade, as we have quarterly tracker meetings. Tracker is our document where we track all of our performance measures. And each district and each division has their version of a localized tracker as well that they meet on quarterly. Because it's important as we're investing this money that we track those results and we use that to drive, to make sure that we're driving in the right direction. So we include in here results so people can see over time, what has that investment brought them? What do citizens get for having us and funding our system? And as Patrick mentioned at the beginning, one that we're very proud of, because this involves the whole organization, is 951 lives saved. Now, I can't tell you who those are. They don't know who that is. But we know from our improvements in guardrail, guard cable, rumble stripes, brighter signs, to re-engineered intersections, J-turns and the like, that implementing those has reduced crashes and that saves lives. That's vitally important to what we do. It's one of the heart-wrenching things about what we do is that our staff are also some of those who are the first to respond to those crashes out there that take lives, to help first responders clean up afterwards and deal with that. And that 1,000 people, 3 people a day is staggering. And realizing that there's 4 things that drivers are, within driver's control, they're leading that. It's speed, it's distraction, it's being impaired, and not wearing a safety belt. Those are the 4 leading. All those are within the driver's control, and that's what's kind of the frustrating thing as I speak from the engineering point of view. We make lots of changes out here. We're doing all types of implementing things, and there's 4 things drivers could do to help us out that really can change the odds here. But we're proud of the 951 that our implementation shows that we've saved. And that is a life that doesn't even know it, that's going to touch many more. Now, some of the other things in the results that we're proud of course, now we're up to 4,430 projects completed. Over $10 billion under budget and on time. And that's I mentioned inflation. Prior to last year, we had a 10-year track record of being either at budget or under budget. Those are projects delivered. That is improvements to the people. That's where some of those safety benefits come from. That's making sure that we're good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. That's also where we have to thank our consultants and contracting partners, because they're the other part that makes that happen. We have a wonderful relationship with both of those in Missouri. We work very well hand in hand to deliver improvements for Missouri. And this is one that we're proud of, and most people wouldn't even recognize. And it's hard to find somebody to compare, because a lot of states don't publish their number in this category because it's not as impressive. So we are very proud to be able to say that. The other thing that our results tracks is that $5.5 billion in savings, either one time or ongoing, that's been reinvested in the system. So the unique thing for us is every dollar we save just turns into another project or another place. It's not that we're growing a pot of money somewhere. It's just more that we get to do. So if we're able to save somewhere, that means more miles paved and more work done somewhere else. So we grouped the results in the areas of safety, service, and stability and category-wise. And here's some of them underneath safety. And we mentioned this before, that some of the things, be able to compete for federal grants, but also our safer approach, a strategic place of where we are preparing projects, that we are asking strategic questions about what's the data say about the project, what are the strategies you could implement, what are the options to improve safety on a project, a systematic thought process of review for projects to improve safety each time we're going to touch the roadway. Each time we don't have the option of doing a whole lot of things, but maybe there's something simple we can do. Now, some of our projects are simply dedicated to a safety improvement. The typical one I'll say is a J-turn. We're going to reconfigure an interchange simply to improve the safety of it. But there's also things we can do when we overlay a roadway, whether it's an improvement to guardrail or rumble stripes or things of that nature. We want to make sure we're looking for those options all the places we can, that we're systematically looking at this. The other category, next category, is service. And this is what does Missouri citizens receive for this investment? And the one I'd like to highlight here is innovations. We're in the middle of the innovations challenges going on right now across the state. So each district and central office has a localized competition, and those competitions are occurring right now. Eventually, this will come to the statewide competition. Some of you have had the ability to come and see the innovations challenge and see the great work our teams come up with. And year after year, it's astounding, the ideas, the processes, and methods they come up with that are innovative to achieving their work. Because that's what's making it happen. When you're having 900 people turnover, they are creative individuals solving problems. So this culture of innovation and recognizing those innovations and then sharing them as best practices, we have a number of states come each year to see us. And I've already talked to a couple that want to come this year, who want to see, how do we do this? How do we borrow into this? And this is really a grassroots thing. This competition starts at the local buildings, to a district competition, to then to the statewide. And you can see a lot of this online of our past success there too. But that culture of innovation, it bleeds into all these areas of safety and service and stability. So the last one I'll bring up is stability. So over time, that steady investment of doing projects, financial responsibility, of using technology to help us out, all those things are what have allowed us to maintain and operate a system. Now, our level of service, as Patrick mentioned, is not where everybody would like. But being able to continue through all the challenges of maintaining and keeping a road condition and bridge condition across that stability, and that's within all the constraints that are going on. So it's important that we recognize we operate within budget constraints. That's the real world. That's why we have 10 billion in unfunded needs. We'd love to do them. You know, the engineers here, that's what they'd love. We'd love to do more projects. We'd love to be able to have more funding for operations. But we live within the real world of constraints of budgets. And this stability, though, has been able to make sure that we focus on asset management and taking care of the system, because that's what our citizens have told us over and over when we do the long range plan. The first thing they say is take care of what you got. Because we have the 7th largest system, right? But we're 21st in land mass as a state. Illinois and Kansas, you can combine all their state highways and not have as many miles as MoDOT does. And we're about 19th in population now. But we have the 7th largest system. Now that's competitive advantage. When you look at where we're located in the United States, you can grow it here, you can mine it here, you can manufacture it, and we can get it anywhere. through that combination of highways, ports, rails, and rivers and airports, we can move it. That's not a question you come to Missouri. And you're seeing that, and we just heard about some of the developments across the state, that when you come here, we have a system that'll move it. It's a tremendous investment that Missourians have made over time. And we have to thank generations prior to us that started that. Now ours is to maintain and keep it going, because when we were talking with industry and the worldwide competition now, our transportation network, they list as a true competitive advantage for Missouri. The last one I have for you, and Patrick teed this up a little bit, is the slide with the cover photo. And I got to take a deep breath here. The cover photo is the outstanding work of beloved team member and friend, Kathy Morrison. Kathy lost her battle with cancer in November. Some of you knew Kathy from taking photos at commission events, and she made a lot of us look better on our portraits than we deserve to look. This is a photograph of Kathy's that we thought most appropriate to acknowledge her outstanding professional work. She won a number of awards and competitions for her outstanding work in the field of photography and publications. And so we thought it was most fitting that our annual report had this beautiful photo as a tribute to our friend, Kathy Morrison. And with that, that's the summary of my little update for you on the annual report. Be glad to answer any questions or comments.
Not really a question, Eric, just a comment. All the information in this annual report is just really so helpful and so easy for people to just look at and understand. And I think it's good the citizens can just really look at this and know how that we spend the money to try to improve the state's transportation system. So it's a very, very good report.
Yeah, as you mentioned in your legislative report, we'll have a whole 57 new legislators that we'll be sharing this information with as a quick way for them to be able to not have to go through a deep dive, but very graphical, very quick to get some funding, feeding and understanding about transportation. It's been very useful. You're very correct there.
Give them the short version.
We do.
Thank you, Eric.
Mr. Chairman, I may suggest Commissioner Erdman and I also use this for our Senate confirmation hearing and maybe put some Post-it notes over every page here. And, one of your comments really struck me with respect to financial constraints. And we have a saying at my work that constraint causes you to focus. And within that focus, you have produced all these fantastic results, and can't be more proud of the highlights, not just of this year, but really what the investments mean moving forward with the historic STIP, and as well as the unfunded needs, and moving those off that list into that as well. So great work and great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Is there an option, because this is a 15-minute presentation, is there a way to get in front of all those freshmen? House and Senate.
Do you know if the House or Senate Transportation Committee has a organizational meeting where you might be able to come in and give this overview? I think it'd be worthwhile.
Yeah, we do. This is the primary feature in our joint committee, Joint Transportation Oversight Committee report. This is what tees it up, is presenting it first to the commission. But we have a very detailed process with government relations, with our area engineers and otherwise, where we actually take all the projects in each of the legislators' districts along with this report. And we have individual meetings with all of the legislators prior to, we try to make it prior to session, or we get it very early on in session. So yeah, we do use this frequently, and there have been opportunities sometimes to get to the freshman class, if you will. That's a very strong, not sophomore, but coming into their third year. I think was one of our stronger inbound classes of legislators over the past couple of years. Those that are in that third cycle have become leaders in the General Assembly, and they came in with an infrastructure emphasis, and they really wanted to learn, and this fit very well with them, and I think it will with the new class coming in as well.
Yeah. Do you have anything else, Patrick? Okay. Eric, that was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Madam Secretary, we have public comment period. Do we have anyone signed up? No? Okay. Typically, at the end of each meeting, we'd like to provide each commissioner member an opportunity to share any concerns or comments they have. Today, I'll start with Commissioner Treese.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me congratulate Brandy Baldwin again on your selection and promotion. I had a chance to work with Brandy at the City of Columbia on the Roachport Bridge project, the Citizens Advisory Group for I-7063. Couldn't be more thrilled with her selection and what she brings to the table. And then just to comment on Kansas City and it's so nice to meet Ron and Mark and to be able to look at the Buck O'Neill Bridge project and see what can happen when great leaders work together at the state, federal, and local level for that project with Mark, the City of Columbia, or City of Kansas City with MoDOT and our federal partners there as well. And I think it just reinforces Kansas City as kind of that crossroads of America with, not only from its historic context with the Santa Calagon, the Santa Fe, California, Oregon Trail, but the important freight hub right here in Middle America. And to be able to make those investments as we move forward, I think is really exciting. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith, they always take all the
Oh,
thunder.
man.
They always take the thunder.
Well, great meeting. I'm sorry, great meeting. Again, Steve, I wish you the best of luck in your future. We are going to miss you. Kevin Ward, it's always good to see you. I thought you'd forgot about us, but it's always good to see you back here. Commissioner Treese echoed Brenda, Brandy, congratulations on your appointment. We know you'll do great things. And Travis and Chris, thank you for your leadership at MoDOT. 1,000 people, that's just too many, it's just uncalled for. So hopefully we'll get some legislation to try to correct some of this stuff. So also, Eric, how appropriate. How appropriate. Kathy was one of the first people I met when I come to MoDOT, and she was a wonderful gal. She was. And we just want her family to know that they're in our thoughts and prayers this difficult time. So anyway, great meeting. It's always good to be in Kansas City. This is my second home. My wife's up here at least twice a week. She's here today, so.
Shopping. She's shopping.
We just built a house. So yeah, she's about to break me. But anyway. Anyway, it's good to be here, Chairman.
Thank you,
Thank
Commissioner
you
Smith.
last night to the chamber. Thank you, Warren, for hosting us over there. What a beautiful place. So buck stops there. Thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Commissioner.
Thank
Erdman.
you for letting me go second.
Yeah, well, you
too.
took a lot of thunder. Commissioner Erdman.
Well, I'm finished my third meeting of the Highway Commission. And in the last 6 months, I've felt a bit like learning and drinking from a fire hose. But the entire experience has been rewarding and comforting as a Missourian. And having seen it now from the inside, I'm impressed by the competence and professionalism of the MoDOT team. And it's been 6 months of learning. I want to congratulate Chris Redline and the Kansas City District Office. Very proud of the way you guys conduct yourself. Looking forward to learning more next week and working with you. As I look forward, I joined Brian in preparing for confirmation. Always fun. But I think the year ahead is one of enormous opportunity. And in just the moment I have left, I want to echo what Director McKenna said about operations. We are doing a better job on the capital side, but on the operating side, we can do ourselves a lot of harm in the public if we don't find ways to address these operating service issues. He's spot on with that. I don't profess to have the answer, but I profess to help you look for it and support it. And as we move forward into the general legislative session before the General Assembly, I think we should do so thinking of it as a time of great opportunity. There's a lot of money at the state. And the state has a lot of transportation needs, and I look forward to the leadership of our chairman and our director as we figure out how to best take advantage of that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Eckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Pam and her staff and Chris for the wonderful tours we had yesterday. It's amazing. It's, I think, the fourth time I've been out to Buckland Hill, and just the progress that's going on out there is just amazing. And that always impressive with that huge structure that's being put up there. And then Kansas City needs to be really proud about the new airport. That's going to be phenomenal out there. We got to look at that, and it's going to be great for Kansas City and for the area. Warren, I want to thank you for you and the chamber for hosting us last night, and that opportunity to see Harry Truman's car. That was something that I'll cherish for the rest of my life, because a little bit of Missouri history there. I know it all been mentioned, but I want to say it too. Congratulations to Brandy, to Chris, Travis, and Rick for your leadership coins. Brenda for getting and your financial services team for getting that bonding rate. That's phenomenal. It's really going to help us out. And then, as been mentioned, this annual report, I remember 5 years ago looking at the first annual report, and I was just overwhelmed. And this document is fantastic. It's so much of an improvement. And in closing, I just want to wish everyone a safe and happy holiday season and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Commissioner Boatright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The one point I want to make is we do, in front of us, if you listen to the comments of the commissioners, we really have a generational opportunity in front of us to invest in infrastructure that has been put into place and that has benefited everybody in this room. To have a capital program go, I was just jotting down notes, in 2016, we had $27 million of funding going out a month to the capital program. Today, we've got about $170 million a month going out on the capital program. That's a big change. And staffing wise, I would throw a dart and say that we have less staff than we did when we were putting out $27 million a month. And with that said, there's certainly going to be things that come up. I do want to thank our partners in the construction industry, because they have they've really stepped up to the plate, and when it comes to getting this work done, they are certainly doing that. And it's a team effort, and it's something that to put that amount of funding out a month, it takes a lot of coordination and a lot of intelligent people to do so. So it really is a team effort. Going back, we're in this time period that we're putting together the unfunded needs throughout the state. And that is such a important document for us to reflect on what we have in front of us, what it's going to cost to get it done. And when that funding comes up, we knock it down pretty quick and just, start pulling those jobs in there. $2 billion to date that have been pulled into from that unfunded needs list, which I think is just absolutely incredible. So to echo everything else that's been said, just really appreciate the folks in this room. Hope everybody has a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Well, they took it all. Ditto. Anyhow, I do want to admit, I'd say this every year. I left here 47 years ago. And what the people of Kansas City have done is just nothing short of amazing. Thank you, Ron and Scott, for your leadership there. I just wish we had some of this in St. Louis. It could come down and rub off on us down there. Anyhow, before we adjourn, I want to let you know that January 4th, 2023, we're going to be in Jefferson City. Oh, and I did want to comment on Brandy. I want to give you a month or so to get dialed in down there. But it'd be nice if we did another tour of that lab with the two new commissioners while we're in Jeff City. I know how you like us to go places and see things. So that'll be fun, but we'll get you a couple months, get it going. So I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Vote aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.